so much for joining us for Ask the Sheriff. Sheriff William Hansel is here with me today, and he's going to answer all of those burning questions that you submitted online.
Thank you, Samantha.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and just start right off with category crime reporting.
Okay.
We've got a lot of questions about that. So how do you prioritize calls?
Yeah, so as calls come into our dispatch center, what we do is we prioritize life safety always. So life over property. So if there is someone who is injured, hurt, someone who is a victim of violent crime, or if there's violence that's about ready to happen, those go right to the top. Those are our priority one calls. We immediately send deputies, oftentimes with their lights and sirens, to get there as quick as possible to try and intervene with the situation. The crimes that have just occurred, where there could be still a suspect in the area, those are our second priority type calls. And then the what we call cold calls or cold crimes, the crimes that occurred, the suspect is no longer there, those go to the bottom of the list. And sometimes those are taken by community service officers. They may be handled over the phone. They may be handled through our online reporting system. So it's something that we have to prioritize calls because, again, we only have a limited number of deputy sheriffs, and we have to send them to the highest priorities all the time.
And so how can the public help with this?
Yeah. So what they can do is they can immediately call. If there's a crime that's in progress, immediately call us, call 911, and then describe what's happening, who's involved, and so we can get there as quick as possible. I mean, we rely on crime tips. We rely on the public's help because we can't be everywhere at once. And people know their neighborhoods better than we do. So they can report suspicious activity, they can report those crimes that do occur. Even if you don't think that, or you think someone else is gonna call, please call us. Our dispatchers will let you know, hey, listen, we're on the line right now with the main reporting party. Thank you for calling, we'll take your name, and then, because our dispatchers are overwhelmed with a lot of things. But we wanna make sure that we get your information and that we're able to get those to the deputy sheriffs that are responding.
Yeah, and someone also asked about the importance of calling every time.
Yes.
I know that, sometimes like with those non-emergency calls, you might not see us come out there because we're going to come a little bit later and check on things. So how important is that to actually make those calls?
It is very important because right now we're trying to use intelligence-based policing practices, which we are tracking all the calls for service. We are tracking where the most crimes are occurring at what day and what time. And so we're trying to deploy our resources using these intelligence-based policing practices. So it may not be a situation where we need a deputy in a certain area 24 hours a day because crime is occurring throughout another time of day. So we want people to call. We want there to be truth in reporting, and for no matter how much you may think that you're annoying us, we want to hear about it. And again, it may not be to the top of the list, but it's important that we're there, that we check on it, and that it's all documented in our report writing system.
Absolutely, and that kind of feeds into our crime tip hotline. That's something that we've had for a while now. We also have online crime reporting.
Exactly.
So how does that, can you talk a little bit about that?
So we rely on people's tips, and so you see that there's an information bulletin going out, that there's a wanted person, or there's something that occurred. Anyone that has any information regarding the case, we give our tip line, which is 268-2539. And it's very important that we get those tips because oftentimes just the little tips actually help us in these cases. That line is answered every day and reviewed every day by our special services lieutenant, and he prioritizes the calls, writes up a sheet on it, and then sends it to the appropriate person. It could be a homicide related or a violent crime. It could be a drug tip. It could be a homeless camp. All those things go to different areas of the department. And so it's important that you give us that information and we're able to push it out. Also, you can report it online. We have a online reporting system, and you can give those crime tips online, and we make sure they go out to the right division.
And one thing about that crime tip hotline that's important is that it's actually a voicemail box. So it's going to ring and then go to a voicemail. You're not necessarily going to get a person, and that's on purpose. That's so that you can feel comfortable reporting because you can make those tips anonymously. And we really want as much information as we can get from the public when it comes to solving these sorts of crimes.
True. And then again, if you want to call back, please leave your number and your name, and so we will call you back and let you know what we're doing with that tip.
Yeah.
Great.
So lots of questions about vehicle regulations and
Okay.
traffic laws.
Okay.
How do we enforce traffic laws?
Yeah.
Specifically, someone asked, is there any way to do so?
Well, yeah, California Highway Patrol in the county is tasked with traffic enforcement. But law enforcement officers, if you're a state California police officer, then you can enforce traffic laws. And so our deputy sheriffs oftentimes are in transit going from call to call to call. If they stopped every moving violation, then they would never make it to a call. So unless it's a really egregious violation, you're probably not going to get a sheriff's deputy that pulls you over for some of the minor stuff. But we do have contract cities. We do patrol McKinleyville, Garberville, Redway, and so we enforce those traffic laws along with California Highway Patrol. And so it is important because people have to be held in check. There's lots of speeding, a lot of reckless driving. People don't register their vehicles. All those things, we can pull someone over at any time and give them a citation into traffic court, or where they can pay the fine or fix the ticket.
I've actually seen you pull someone over before.
Yes, yes, it happens from time to time. Yes.
Where you might get the sheriff himself.
That's right.
Somebody was also talking about with that is using a turn signal.
Oh, it's annoying. Exactly. People don't use their turn signals, or they're going 55 miles an hour in the fast lane on the freeway, and all those are little annoying violations of the law. And if there happens to be a law enforcement officer in the area, then they can take enforcement action. But people have to remember, we have 4,000 square miles to cover, and there's 8 to 12 deputies working at any given time. So deputy sheriffs are everywhere in this county. But again, we work so closely with the California Highway Patrol, and we rely on each other out there. And so DUI, traffic enforcement kind of falls to them, but we do help, and we're there to assist them whenever possible.
Yeah. What about car window tinting?
Yeah.
What are the legal standards around that? I think some people are a little confused about what you can do, what you can't do.
Yes, I know different states have different rules, but when it comes to car tinting, pretty much the factory tint that are on your front of your windows are what can be allowed to stay on there. So you can tint the back windows, the back seats, the rear window. That's not a problem. But the forward window, windshield, and also the driver's side front and passenger side front, those can't have really anything more than factory tint on them. You'll be able to be transparent and see through. Now there are times when you could get a doctor prescription for tinting on your windows because of a condition you may have, and so it's if you have a doctor's note and you're able to justify the tint on the window for a medical reason, then law enforcement officers can will not pull you over, but you have a reason to have that, and we're able to walk away and not do anything about it.
Make sure you have that note, though.
Make sure you have that justification. So.
What about, I've seen like red tints. Does it matter what color?
Doesn't, as
Okay.
far as, it just has to, as far as on the front windows, it just really can't be really any tint.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can put blue, red, yellow,
Sure.
A lot of times you see the vehicle wraps too, that are covering the back windows, so you can't see out of them at all.
Yeah,
Mhm.
dangerous. Well, switching gears to community change and crime enforcement.
Sure.
We posted a lot of these questions in our community groups on
Okay.
Facebook. So we do go and we monitor a lot of those neighborhood watch groups and just see, what's going on in your neighborhood, how can we help, that sort of thing. And so when we posted these questions, we posted it to the Lolita neighborhood watch
Okay.
group, community group. And they have several improvements they'd like to see in their town.
Okay.
And they just kind of want to know how they go about doing these things. For instance, they want to install a floodlight near their fire department,
Sure.
stop signs and speed bumps down Park Street, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, so a lot of those have to do with public works, and there is actually a lighting district, I think, in the town of Lolita, and so they're allowed a certain amount of street lights, and if they want more, then I think there's actually a group that do meet and discuss that. I know our supervisor Rex Bone for that area is working to try and improve some of the lighting that is there.
Mm-hmm.
Lighting deters crime, and so we realize that, and so we want to make sure that all the areas are properly lit and managed. So there is, there's some rules associated. So we have to go through the county. You have to go through the normal steps and processes. You can't just throw a light up anywhere on a power pole. But but we want to make sure that we continue to work with the people from Lolita and to try and improve their area.
Yeah, and I know that our sheriff citizens on patrol have been really helpful in McKinleyville getting sort of these sort of things installed, being an advocate
Yes.
for the community. So that could be another route for people.
Exactly. So a lot of towns have like safety committees or traffic committees where they actually walk the different areas at night, at dusk, during the day, looking at different hazards, trip hazards, vegetation that's going out of control, potential fire hazards, and then lighting. And so they're able to then take notes and then report back to the community service districts, to the county, to Caltrans, the lights and vegetation and stuff that need to be fixed. And so it's important. Get involved, and then work with the local governments to try and fix those issues in your area. So it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one that I think is kind of interesting. Do you still spend time enforcing drug crimes?
Well, I think if you've been paying attention over the last couple of years, our county drug task force has been very, very busy. So several years ago, we made the determination that our county drug task force is going to focus on high-level drug trafficking. And so you've seen over the last 3 or 4 years the amount of heroin and methamphetamine that we've gotten off the street, these major transports, pounds and pounds of heroin. And our guys, which makes up of the Sheriff's Office, DA's Office, Fortuna, Eureka, Arcata, California Highway Patrol, all these guys work together and are making a huge difference in the amount of heroin and methamphetamine that are in Humboldt County now. So we're doing a big, even though, possession has been, reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor, we're still enforcing those laws out on the street too. Our deputy sheriffs are enforcing those laws. They're holding people accountable. They're seizing drugs. They're going through the court process, and so everyone's doing everything they possibly can. I have a separate marijuana unit that are focusing on illegal cultivation of marijuana, and so they are focusing on that. Our drug task force focuses on hard drugs. So we're going after all the illegal drugs in the county.
Yeah, and our marijuana team just got a name change.
Yes, they did.
So
they were formerly known as the Drug Enforcement Unit, and now we're known as the Marijuana Enforcement Team because of that distinction. I want people to realize that this is a marijuana-focused enforcement team, and so when you receive a complaint, you know that the MET team is going to be working your complaint. And that people aren't being confused as far as the DEU, Drug Enforcement Unit, and the Drug Task Force. Right. And so it is marijuana. Marijuana is legal as long as you have less than 6 plants. And then if you're cultivating for commercial operations, then you have all the proper permits. So everyone outside of that, our enforcement unit is paying people visits, and they're out actually today and doing enforcement operations. And so it's something that they're focusing on.
Yeah. So a big issue that comes out of Southern Humboldt is about the drug issue and transient issues around Southern Humboldt. And so somebody had asked, what can be done about these issues and why is it hard to enforce?
Homelessness is an issue that's affected all of Humboldt County, and it is essentially was a Eureka-based problem several years ago, and it's expanded throughout the county. And so every part of every town has experienced some homeless issues and those kind of things. It's difficult to enforce because you enforce a homeless camp today, you clear them out, they go somewhere else. And so it's just trying to continually stay on top of it, consistently notice people, working with the property owners. All I can say is that we will continue to do that. We are actually expanding the MIST team with the Department of Health and Human Services. The MIST team has gone from doing outreach here in Eureka to go to McKinleyville. They're in Garberville now. They're in the Eel River Valley. Hopefully get them over to Willow Creek. And so those are the people that the social workers and advocates and law enforcement that team up together to try and help people get out of those homeless camps, get out of those issues, get them the help that they need to get on their feet, and so they're not out using drugs, alcohol, becoming victims of crime, homeless, and prioritizing that. Yeah. So we're not, people seem to think that we are targeting homeless, because they're homeless, because, we believe homeless are criminals. We do not think that whatsoever. If they trespass, if they're using drugs, if they're causing a problem as far as a disturbance goes, if they're polluting the environment, those are the kind of things that causes us to come in contact with them. And so it's one of those things that we will consistently do there. We'll work with people to try and help them, but they have to stay, compliant with the law.
Right, absolutely. So speaking of, kind of working with people and people who have changed their lives, someone asked if you're a felon and you've changed your life drastically, can you go on a ride-along? And what are the ride-along rules?
So we do have a ride-along policy, and part of that is checking someone's background and making sure they're not felons, making sure they don't have a criminal past. So we want to prevent people from that are criminals actually being on our ride-alongs and being in a patrol car and responding to calls for service when you have a criminal past. But Brian Hall, who runs the rescue mission, is a previous felon, and he has drastically changed his life. And Brian and I, go to lunch, we hang out, and he can go on a ride along with me anytime he wants. And so I don't have an issue with that. If someone changes their life and they're on a new road, of course we can make exceptions to our rule. And it's one of those things that, if it's the right person, the right fit, and we believe that they have made a change, then absolutely they can be a part of our team. We have people volunteering in our correctional facility that have been previous felons, and it is A-okay because we believe that they have a life change. So we believe in people, we know people can change, and we're behind them.
Excellent, yeah. So when deputies respond to a CWS complaint, this is a little bit different here, shifting gears again.
Sure.
Do they have the authority to remove the child from the situation right then and there, or do they have to wait for CWS to come make a report?
Yeah, so the authority under 300W9 gives the ability for law enforcement officers to remove a child from their parent or guardian if they have life safety issues, if there's a danger, if they're not properly supervised, if they're being neglected. So we can remove them and then turn them over to child welfare. We do not need child welfare's authority to remove a child from a situation. And once we remove the child, then it's child welfare's job to find out where they need to be placed. Sometimes they place it right back with them with a safety plan. Sometimes there is family, sometimes there's foster parents, but that's not our job to try and determine where they end up going. If we see that they're involved in a crime or a victim of crime, or again fall into one of those categories, then we will remove the child, and we have that authority to do that.
And we have a great partnership though with CWS. We've been working with them a lot lately.
Absolutely.
And,
So child welfare and the sheriff's office and law enforcement in general have a great relationship. So we rely on each other to try and help the children and families here in Humboldt County. It is vital that we have that close relationship, and I'm very, very happy that lines of communication have been fixed, and it's something that we're working with them every day to try and make sure that we're out there and sharing information, and I'm very, very happy to see that we are making a difference out there with the children, and that there's actually crime being solved and people being helped. So very, very happy about that, as well as working with the district attorney's office and the CAST program to make sure that the children are properly interviewed and there is an area to help them, once they are involved in those crimes.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Great. Well, we have one more question.
Okay.
This is completely different once again, but it's under the community sort of category here.
Far away.
This is about our livestock deputy position.
Yeah.
And so the person is asking, are there any future plans to create a full-time livestock deputy as opposed to the deputy being split between special services and livestock calls?
Yeah.
And then they also want to know, why is that position held by a deputy? Why not, under animal control or something like that?
Yeah, it's we are committed to have a livestock deputy. We actually do have a full-time livestock deputy. That deputy does get pulled away to do other jobs and services, and that may include some special services, marijuana enforcement, search and rescue. It's an important part of the job, but livestock deputy is very, very important. It's kind of our rural deputy. They handle some of the large animal issues and investigations when it comes to animal abuse, animal cruelty, and how you're supposed to treat livestock. So it's vital. We're going to continue to have it as a deputy sheriff, and they're going to be a part of special services, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I know, I mean, we get so many livestock calls every single day. We had one recently about a yak
Yes.
that escaped, and that was a big deal in Bayside, so you never know what you're going to get being the livestock deputy.
You never know, absolutely. And so I'm thankful that we do have a sheriff farm that we're able to store all these large animals, and so it's a good thing.
Awesome. Well, that's all I have, Sheriff. Do you have anything you want the community to know?
I just want to remind people that that we rely on your help and your assistance, to do our jobs. That we work for you, and that if you have any issues, we want to work with you. I want to urge people to join Neighborhood Watch. We have a great CERT team, which is it helps in disasters, and as well as our SCOPE program. So volunteer, help. And if you see a problem, please call us and let us know what's going on. And again, we want to be involved in helping Humboldt County become a better place. And if you want a job, right now we are hiring. So we are hiring deputy sheriffs, correctional deputies, dispatchers. And so please pay attention to our website. I'm sure Sam will put up our link, and that and if you want to try and make a difference here in the county, you can join the sheriff's office, because we do make a difference every day. And I'm proud of our deputy sheriffs and our correctional deputies and our dispatchers that are there every day doing the job and doing it well with professionalism. So thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find out more information about everything that we've talked about today at HumboldtSheriff.org. We'll see you next time.